Gonna start my other camera. Hi everyone, I'm here doing Lilac enfleurage. So, as you can see, I've got my flowers here, and I'm just gonna switch the camera so I can show you the setup. So, here's the core, ready to go. It's avocado butter and raw beeswax. Here are my lilacs, and then down there on the floor, you can see the fans and the lilacs, which I'll explain in a second. But I want to get going because we're having really bad thunderstorms, and I'm out here on the glassed-in porch. I'm just going to angle the camera. So I want to show you the technique before the next set of storms rolls in. And I might not see all the questions, so you can always leave them as a comment afterwards. Oops. Or you can, let me find the best angle. Or you can send me a message or an email. And my spicy sale right now, it's 50% off spicy fragrances with code, I think it's spicy50, but the code details are on the website. So what I do, so my lilacs, actually I shouldn't have hooked it. Let me show you again. The flowers. Okay, so I keep them in a vase in cold water. I actually bring the vases with the water outside when I cut them, so they go directly in because they start to wilt pretty fast. Welcome if you're just joining. And then, so they stay in the vase. Now I have the fan set up because we've been getting such bad lightning storms and rain that I picked them earlier today during a period when it was sunny. And then I set up the fans. It was actually my mom's idea, and they're totally dry now. So the fans are off now, but they were running this afternoon. And as you can see, they're still really crisp. They're upright. They're not drooping at all. They're bouncy. You want them to have this bouncy feel. And this, I believe, is the hybrid Syringa hyacinthiflora. So it's a cross of Syringa oblata with Syringa vulgaris. And it's an early bloomer. And I believe that the variety is Asessippi. And I'll put the details in the caption. And so what I usually do is, and I usually use 2 hands, but I pull off, you can see there's this is the panicle, like the big cone-shaped cluster, but then they have little mini clusters. So I snap that off, drop it down. So I do that with several, usually use 2 hands. I'm just gonna angle my other camera so I can get this too. So I'm pulling off these tiny, they're almost like broccoli florets, and putting it down. Now that's not how they stay. So I'm gonna show you what I do on the pomade in just a second. Sorry, it's hard for me to talk and do this at the same time, surprisingly. Okay, so that's good just to start. And then me angle the camera well. Okay, we're back. Sorry. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm gently pulling off the individual flowers, just dropping them down. And as I do it, I'm removing the detritus. And you can also see I'm not getting the calyxes. So there's a calyx. I'm going to pull that off and remove it. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but little thrips come off. They're little insects, and I'm removing them as I go. And then also, those are going to be there in the morning or early afternoon when I change this out. So after I dump all the flowers off, I'm going to go through and I'm going to have to remove all the thrips too. And there isn't going to be a lot of plant detritus because they're coming off pretty clean and they're not dirty, the flowers, but there will be thrips. So you want to, and I use the lobster pick that I was just using now to get rid of those. And I have just paper towels, and I will like put some alcohol on the paper towels. It's kind of damp with alcohol. And then there's a calyx there, tiny leaf here, little piece of something up here, and I'm just removing as I go. And I don't know if you can see in the video, but they're really, really like kind of glossy, almost satiny flowers. And the whole porch here just smells like lilac. It's such a heady fragrance. And the thrips are usually down in the throat of the flowers. Now you can see this bunch did not have, and I'm showing it for both cameras, did not have any brown flowers on it. If there are brown flowers, they don't go onto the enfleurage. Oops. But yeah, unfortunately the thrips come out sort of as you pull them away from the calyx. And it turns out that with this angle I can see if anyone has any questions, so feel free to ask. And look, here's one. It's got a little bit of brown on it, so it gets removed. And then a little bit of green stuff here, just taking it off. Okay. And it is pretty satisfying how it just kind of, sometimes the last bunch I had, they were kind of snapping off, but this one is really smooth. It's just kind of separating from the calyx, which I really like, the feeling of that. Yeah. Just gonna change the angle of the camera. Okay. And if it gets stormy, I'm gonna probably turn this off and take a break. But you can kind of see, so it's gonna take a long time to cover this. And sometimes I'll put them face down, but the last few years I haven't. I've just covered, like I've gotten more flowers on for each charge by doing it this way. And to me, it smells like a more intensely scented, like the last few years I've done it, like a more intensely scented product. Now, lilac is never going to be really strongly scented because if you think about how many individual blossoms it takes to fill the air, it's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what like gardenia can do, or tuberose, or even like orange blossom. So, you know, when I say it's a more intensely scented product, that's relative to lilac. And then someone messaged me today, I hope they don't mind me mentioning this here, asking, you know, if I sanitize the fat and wax, like the core, that's the term for it. Sometimes I'll call it a pomade too, the French pomade. But in between the charges. And I don't sanitize. What I'm sanitizing is the lobster pick here on the paper towels, but I don't wipe it down with alcohol after each charge. And one of the reasons I don't is because I want to usually do another charge, especially with lilac, right away because it's so time consuming and the season's so short. And look, here's a brown flower here. So I'm going to remove that. And then another one. But also, I would think maybe that if I was to wipe it down with alcohol, and maybe other people have a better technique in between the charges, that I would actually possibly be pressing like the detritus or the thrips, you know, in the case of lilac, into the fat more. And so instead, in between the charges, I'll use my lobster pick. I'll also use a flashlight because you can see better than what just natural light is going to pick up on. Sometimes the thrips, the ones I've seen right now, are dark colored, but sometimes they're really light colored, and so that can be hard to see on the surface. So I would think maybe if you're wiping it with an alcohol soaked cloth, you could just be smearing the thrips across the surface, which kind of grosses me out. So whereas if you use a flashlight and a lobster pick, then you can see, if by angling the light in different ways, you can see if the surface of the core is smooth or if there's any detritus on it, like the little tiny insects, or even some of the these plant parts are kind of pale colored, so you'd want to you can see if anything is lingering on the surface. And the flowers, they're still really crisp and bouncy. They're holding their shape. You could tell when I touch them, they bounce right back. They're not soft and like getting soggy or anything, which can happen if you leave them out of the water. That was a mistake I made like the first year that I did enfleurage. And then also, I try only to pick what I'm going to use for one charge, so I kind of have to estimate. And then, because after, it depends on the shape of the flowers and like which, you know, how warm it is outside, the cultivar and everything. But even in the vase, they'll start to wilt, you know, after a while. So I try not to pick them too far ahead of time. Obviously, I have the luxury, because I came to Vermont to do this, of being able to, you know, pick them as I go. And then we have been getting a lot of thunderstorms. Like there was this huge thunderstorm last night when I was driving back from the airport after flying in, and all the mountains were illuminated. It was really beautiful. And then today, like this afternoon, I've been waiting to do the live because I was waiting for the storms to abate, but it keeps getting extended, the storm watch. But the lightning is actually really good for the soil, and this is something that Rachel Binder has talked about of Kamar's Stolen Perfume. She's much more of an expert than I am. I'm really not an expert at all in that, but the lightning, just what it does for the soil and for plants, like the basic gist of it is that the nitrogen in the atmosphere isn't in a form that plants or humans can absorb. It's got two nitrogen atoms in the molecule that they're not separated, and the lightning provides enough energy to split those atoms, and then they can bond to oxygen and form nitrogen dioxide. And then because it's usually raining when there's lightning, the nitrogen dioxide dissolves as nitric acid in the rainwater, I believe, and that when it falls into the soil, it is easily absorbed as nitrates by plants. And the nitrates are like a super fertilizer that helps plants to green up quickly. So it's really beneficial for them. And then also plants are one of the ways that we're able to consume nitrogen, which is an essential for humans too. So it helps us as well. So I am really glad for the lightning storm. And I'm just keep looking because I can kind of see thrips emerging. There's one. And I mentioned this in my last live, like I don't know, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about insects and enfleurage. All the plants that I grow and use are organic, so I don't use pesticides. So, but there are, you know, insects that will come on, you know, come into the process, and it's just something that you kind of have to accept. And then I can see one brown flower tried to get in there. Sorry, has to be removed. And then a couple tiny leaves. Usually I'll listen to a podcast, an audiobook, or watch TV while I'm doing this, because it takes all day, more than 8 hours during lilac season. And then these last two are brown, so I'm not going to use them. The nice thing about lilacs is you can just take the tray, your chassis or whatever you want to call it, and just shake them off, and pretty much all of them will come off. If they are not coming off, it probably means that you left the flowers on for too long, because you don't want them to get totally soft. So I don't leave lilacs on for 24 hours. It's less than 24 hours. And even if they're partly opened, oops, like this one, that's good. That one's still good, as long as it doesn't have brown on it. So I'm doing this for a while now, and here's a brown one. So take that off. And still got quite a ways to go. Oh, I missed a little plant part down here. So look, that's all I've done. And that's just one tray. So this tray usually takes me about 4 hours to cover. So, and lilac season lasts about 2 weeks, give or take. Depends on how hot it is, how rainy it is, how cold it is, and humidity. And then it also depends on how much rain came earlier in the year too. Like last season wasn't a good year here for lilacs because they didn't get a lot of rain. And then, so yeah, so 4 hours to cover just this tray, and then, you know, times 14 days. And then I have usually like 6 to 8 trays. This is my biggest tray though, so I'm not doing it. So the other trays are about half the size of this. And then like the layer of the fat is so thin. I don't know if you can tell, but it's almost like translucent. It's so thin. I'm not using anywhere near as thick of a layer as I do for like gardenia or tuberose, which is more of like your standard enfleurage layer of like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. This is just like a film, and I just spotted another one that's got a little bit of brown on it. I'm gonna remove that. So, and the reason I have such a thin layer is because of like the math of, you know, getting the proper number of charges. If you can't do 36 charges, which is like, you know, traditional for enfleurage, then you can make the core thinner, and then but even, you know, those 36 charges, like I do way more for osmanthus. You know, I tend not to do less or fewer than 36, you know, given the what would be the standard thickness of the enfleurage, but I will do more. Now that said, people are still can still be disappointed by enfleurage because it's not, you know, it doesn't compare to like absolutes really in terms of its strength, and these are just kind of falling off. Sometimes that happens too. Just want to make sure they don't have brown spots on them. And yeah, so people can still be disappointed by enfleurage even if you're doing it the traditional way, because it's a much softer scent. The product is much softer, and we kind of have to accept the limitations of the natural world as well as like the limitations of like human labor, because you reach a point at which the fat is saturated. It can't be more saturated, but that's the way the fragrance is, you know, for the natural flower. So yeah, so that's something that if you're doing enfleurage and selling it, you probably will have to do some managing of expectations. But I really love doing it, and I love the result personally, and I feel like your nose does adjust to the more subtle extraction. And then this one has just a tiny bit of brown on it, so sorry, I'm going to remove it. Get some more. Over here. I'm not used to doing this process with the camera and having to reposition stuff. So I think I'll do a few more, and then I'll probably just end the live because it's just going to be the same thing. And I'll do more lives on Lilac. I'm going to do one on Lily of the Valley also, and that's getting ready to that'll probably be in the next couple of days. Again, it depends on like the temperature. So yesterday it was pretty hot here. Like I think I just got in last night, but I think my parents said it was like almost 80 during the day. And that made the lilacs pop. So like today was the first day that the early blooming lilacs were ready. So now all of these gaps here, I'm gonna fill in. So this tray will be totally covered by the time I'm done with it. Welcome. If you're just joining, I'm doing lilac enfleurage. This is Asessippi, I believe. Now, I had to identify these varietals like after the fact because these are at my parents' house, and they were planted like more than 40 years ago, and they don't know which varieties they picked. So so I've just kind of tried to identify them after the fact. But it's an early blooming lilac, and the Asessippi variety is a hybrid Syringa hyacinthiflora, which is a cross of oblata with vulgaris. The vulgaris blooms a little bit later. This is the earliest since I've been doing lilac that they've bloomed. So it's early by like 4 days. And I'm pretty happy with the fan situation. As I've been doing these, I haven't felt any like moisture, so the way I had the fan set up really worked well. That was my mom's idea. And you're just trying to be really delicate as you pull them away from the stem. So I don't want to tear the flower. Because I don't want to introduce like a lot of like water or moisture dripping onto the surface. So trying to keep it intact. And as I said that, like I just tore that one. So I'm gonna, since I caught it, I'm just gonna not include that one. And there are reblooming lilacs too. So I have like 6 of those that I put in a few years ago. And I haven't enfleuraged them yet because I've been waiting for them to get to be bigger plants. So I'm just going to do this little bunch, and then I think I'll say goodbye. Did I break that one off? I think I broke that one. There it is. And so I think if you, I'll do a live tomorrow on cleaning the pomade or the core between charges. And I'll be checking the Lily of the Valley. So if that's ready, maybe there'll be one tomorrow, but I kind of doubt it. And then I'm also running the extractor with my Northern White Cedar. So when I start packing that up, I'll do a live on that. But the final evaporation usually takes like a day or so. So there'll be something tomorrow. It might just be the cleaning of the lilac. So I hope you enjoyed that, and have a good night. Bye.